70,000 people are here, and Bob Dylan is the reason for it.
Inspired by their true story.
For anyone who's going to hold your attention on a stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. He defied everyone.
Turn it down!
Play loud!
To change everything.
Make some noise, BD.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro. A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, listen, I hate to do this because I know I've got a national audience here with me, but I've got to be very local here real quick because I have two affiliates in Vidalia, Georgia, and Dublin, Georgia. And with power outages and things like that, they can listen to the radio. They can't listen to the TV right now, and I need them to know there are tornadoes headed in your direction. If you are in Baxley or Vidalia or Dublin, Georgia right now, you need to seek shelter because I can see them on the radar. There are tornado warnings in your area. This is the way it's going to be for the next probably 18 hours here in my neck of the woods as this hurricane gets closer. And it's still a long way off. I mean, it's not even supposed to make landfall here for probably another 5-6 hours. And then it's going to blow through the night, moving north. Everything is tracking north. I am in my home studio as this hurricane approaches. And we are now supposed to get the brunt of the storm. It has continued to wobble, and things can continue to change between now and then. But right now, we're supposed to get the worst of it. And those of you who know anything about hurricanes, the northeast side, really, it's the right side of a hurricane based on its trajectory. So if it's moving to the north, which this one is, it is the right side of the hurricane. And particularly the northeast side of the hurricane is the stronger side, given the way the winds whip around. And it's going to come... The northeast side, the right side of it's going to be just to the east of me, so we're going to get some heavy winds and stuff out of it. Hoping I'll be able to get out of the neighborhood in the morning. All this is to say, if you're listening to this on a Friday, I'm actually live on Thursday, and if you're hearing this on Friday, it means that not only could I not make it to the studio, that I wasn't able to get something pre-recorded for you because the power went out. We'll be fine where we are. I'm not expecting to get swept away by tornadoes. Those are this front that's moving in advance of it. But again, if you're in my listening audience in Dublin, Georgia, or in Vidalia, Georgia, you need to seek some shelter. You've got some heavy stuff coming your way. And those of you in Vidalia, don't be fooled. It's about to stop raining, and the tornado is just on the other side of the end of the rain. So just be careful for you. All right, we got other stuff we got to talk about in particular. And I want to take your phone calls, and I'll try to start taking your phone calls this segment. Got people on hold. But I need to talk to you about the House of Representatives. Yesterday, I talked to you about the United States Senate. There's a growing body of evidence that the Republicans are probably going to pick up the United States Senate. Now, they need some help. It is very, very close in Ohio. Sherrod Brown actually looks like he could go down to defeat. Now, the polling has shifted there in the last week. Bernie Moreno is not a strong candidate, but the whole of Ohio has become more Republican over time, and it's helping. Those wins are helping Bernie Moreno. In Montana, it looks like Tim Sheehy is now in the lead there against John Tester. He still needs some money to help him pull it off. And in West Virginia, the Republicans have got a lock on that seat, it seems, with Jim Justice, the current governor there, with Joe Manchin not running for re-election. Now, there are some other races that are close. Eric Hovde in Wisconsin is a very close Republican. The odds still favor the Democrats there, but he's gaining ground. Same with Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. McCormick is beginning to pick up momentum just as early voting starts in Pennsylvania. He's closing the way he needs to close. Sadly, Sam Brown doesn't seem to be doing great in Nevada, but I'm hoping he can still pick up some momentum there. He's a great candidate. Former Army officer who was badly burned in Afghanistan. We had him at the gathering. Great guy. Now, the Democrats are suddenly saying, well, wait. Nebraska, Texas, Florida, those look like they're in play for us. Those races don't really look like they're in play for Democrats to me, but I'm glad the Democrats think they are because that's going to redirect money out of Montana and out of Ohio and maybe even out of Pennsylvania in ways that make those states more pliable for the Republicans. The problem is the House of Representatives. There was a red wave in 2022. And there was not a red wave in 2022. It was Schrodinger's wave. If you looked at the wave, you did not see it. If you did not look at the wave, it was there taking out Democrats. Schrodinger's wave blew through New York and California. A lot of seats that the Democrats should have won in both of those states went Republican. It actually played out at the local level around the country. In Florida, it played out pretty significantly. The problem is it didn't play out broadly enough. So there were parts of the country where the GOP had redistricted hoping they could do well, and it just didn't pan out for them. So they didn't make massive inroads. The problem is now the seats in New York have been redistricted, and that helps the Democrats. In California, the Democrats realize they got to limit people from campaigning so they can shut out the Republicans. That hurts the Republicans. And you have some bad recruitments for the GOP. The Trump wing of the GOP continues to find candidates who scratch their itch but are terrible fits for their actual congressional district so they can win primaries and not general elections. And at some point, the Republicans are going to have to figure out how to crack this nut that you've got MAGA picks a MAGA candidate that nobody else likes. So they make it through a Republican primary and go down in flames in a Republican district because nobody else likes them. And MAGA's fine with that because they say it's either our way or the highway, but the country gets screwed in the process because any Republican would be better than any Democrat by and large. That's the problem. The other problem is that President Trump has not done the amount of fundraising that the Republicans expected him to do. Now, side note, and I can't emphasize this enough, and I said it the other day. I used to set up a page that had links to give donations to good candidates. And I have a number of candidates who I like or love and support. And I've stopped giving them money. And I no longer encourage my friends to give them money. And I no longer set up pages for my friends and family and listeners and readers to give money to, because you know, and I know exactly what's going to happen. You're going to start getting spammed nonstop. Not just email. You're going to start getting text messages. I get 3 or 4 a day from different candidates, and they all deny it. WinRed says, it's not us. Baloney. It never happened until I used your portal to give money, and I had to put in my cell phone number, and now I get spammed all the time. So I'm done. I'm not giving money to Republican candidates again. I did give money to Donald Trump, and sadly, I continued to get spam from his campaign. I will never give money to a candidate again. I will not do it. I find it so disrespectful to me that they would browbeat me, and it's a new number every day, so I can't block the number, and it's a different candidate, one I've never heard of, one I don't want to give money to, and they spam me all the time. I'm just done. So you Republicans who are complaining about the small dollar donors not giving you money, you caused the problem. I refuse to encourage my listeners and readers to participate because of the abuse you will heap upon them. I had somebody the other day, so if you text Army to 33777, you can put in your name and your email and stuff, and I don't spam you. That list is not for sale. I do not give it to other people. And it puts in a blank for cell phone. I don't really need your cell phone. And a friend the other day said, it is really effective to send people messages by phone. And I was like, I get that, but like if there's an activist alert, maybe so. I've done it on occasion. But I try not to do it because it's such an annoyance. I don't like to contact people. I don't like to be on the phone, period. I don't even like text messages anymore. I understand it, but I'm infuriated by the spamming of text messages by the GOP. So the result is that they're down. Smaller dollar donors are less likely to give to them, and who can blame them? They need bigger donors. Donald Trump committed to do a fundraiser for him, and he hasn't done that fundraiser for him. And so now the Republicans have fallen behind the Democrats in fundraising for these House races, and every dollar counts. And when you're being outspent by the Democrats 2-1, the odds are Republicans could lose the House. The odds are the Republicans will lose the House unless something changes. Part of that is Donald Trump needed to do a fundraiser for him to get some money. But part of it is none of you guys want to give him money, and I don't want to give him money because we're going to get text message spam. So the GOP is on the verge of winning the Senate and losing the House of Representatives, in large part because they can't raise the money. And while they will never admit to it and no reporter will ever write about it, I am convinced part of the reason they're having trouble with small dollar donors is because we all know what's going to happen if we give them any money. And so none of us are giving them money. Now, to the phones, as promised, I'm going to start with Brian's phone call. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. How are you doing?
Great.
All right. So I want to start off with saying I agree with you on the Trump tariffs. And very clearly the Kamala campaign, the Harris campaign agrees with you on this as well. And they go very heavy into saying that it's going to come out of our pockets when all is said and done. And then she'll turn around and say that she's going to hike a corporate tax. And I'm just a little bit confused how that's any different, if not worse. And I'll hang up and I'll listen.
All right, Brian. Yeah, listen, I think they're basically about the same. So the way that the corporate income tax works, the corporate income tax increase is actually a little less inflationary than the economy. Here's why. The corporate tax applies to income that is brought into the United States. So a corporation doesn't have to pay that corporate tax if it keeps its foreign money outside the United States. So it can keep its money in its Irish bank account, for example. It doesn't have to pay income taxes the way Kamala Harris wants to structure it. You bring that money into the country, it's going to get taxed. So that's less inflationary in that the corporation doesn't have to raise your prices here based on the money it's kept overseas. It can keep that money and use that money overseas in tax havens for advantageous reasons. The tariff is actually more inflationary because the tariff applies to every good. There's no way for you or the corporation to avoid it. So it is forced to raise prices to pass the tariff cost on to consumers. Now, does it raise it 100%? Actually, no, it doesn't. It's easy to talk about it as if they do, but it generally doesn't raise the price 100% of the tariff. It eats part of the cost as well because it knows it needs you to buy it, but it still does raise prices, and you do pay the bulk of the tariff. So while a corporation doesn't necessarily have to raise prices if the corporate income tax rate goes up because it can just keep money outside the United States and use it overseas instead of transmitting money from the U.S. overseas. With a tariff, absolutely every price has to go up because they've got to pass it on. It's not the country that pays the tariff. Countries do not pay tariffs. Consumers pay tariffs. When Donald Trump, for example, says we're going to put a 10% tariff on anything, any good that is manufactured abroad, not just from our enemies like China, but from everybody, including like India. Well, that 10% tariff then is going to raise prices in this country between probably 7 and 10%. Why 7%? Because sometimes the company will eat part of the cost and it will decrease its profits. And in decreasing its profits, it has less money to reinvest in the company. So it curtails hiring. And so you have devastating protectionist economic ramifications of a tariff. It's so common sense to see that a tariff fails. But yet that's Donald Trump has been convinced by someone that failed 1950s economic policies are the best way forward in the country. It's a terrible idea. I hope he rethinks this. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Just quick update for those of you here in the Southeast. The storm continues to advance. And again, as I've said, if you're hearing this on a Friday, it means my power's out. I have some breaking news for you I need to get to real quick. I'll get to your phone calls here on the other side of the break. The phone number again, 877-973-7425. Again, why this isn't an immigration prosecution of Eric Adams. The investigation began quite a long time before immigration was even an issue. Let me read for you this paragraph from the now public indictment. In September 2021, the Turkish official told Eric Adams, the defendant, that it was his turn to repay the Turkish official by pressuring the New York City Fire Department to facilitate the opening of a new Turkish consular building, a 36-story skyscraper without a fire inspection, in time for a high-profile visit by Turkey's president. At the time, the building would have failed a fire inspection. In exchange for free travel and other travel-related bribes in 2021 and 2022, arranged by the Turkish official, Adams did as instructed. Because of Adams' pressure on the fire department official responsible for the fire assessment of the skyscraper's fire safety was told he would lose his job if he failed to acquiesce, and after Adams intervened, the skyscraper opened as requested by the Turkish official. Side note on all this government corruption. Here's part of the real world issue here. You can be a corrupt Democrat so long as you're competent. Marion Barry of Washington, D.C. lasted a long time despite all of his corruption because Marion Barry made sure the potholes were filled in and people were kept safe. Eric Adams has failed to fill the potholes. He's failed to keep people safe. In addition to everything else, he was pretty expendable. It had nothing to do with his criticisms of the Biden administration. And again, I cannot help but, I don't mean to be insulting, but you really aren't a deep thinker if that's just what you've rushed to. It's so much more than that, including a complete distraction from the number of Democrats who have now been arrested in this country for helping foreign governments. Why pay attention to that when you could just say it's immigration? Also, never mind, this investigation clearly started into Eric Adams before he was even vocal on immigration. Maybe Eric Adams decided he would be vocal on immigration so that you people would have his back. I guess he can now run for the Republican presidential nomination in 2028 with a bunch of Republicans cheering him on as one of their own. The whole thing's ridiculous. The guy was corrupt, and he was also incompetent. He couldn't fill in the potholes, he couldn't keep people safe, and he was corrupt, which makes him highly, highly expendable. And that's all I got to say about that. We got plenty of other stuff we got to talk about when we come back, including the fallout from Volodymyr Zelensky's trip. First, I got to tell you about Swiss America. They've been the trusted leader in precious metals for 40 years. They've been warning people about a secret war on cash for some time. If you're interested in safeguarding your hard-earned cash from this secret war, you need their free report. They're rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. They can educate you on protecting your assets in their report, The Secret War on Cash. All you have to do to get it is go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. The report takes less than 15 minutes to read. It can save on your retirement and finances. You get a completely free copy by going to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, or you can just call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. The all-out war on cash includes digital forms of currency. It is spreading. The government is monitoring your cash purchases. Let Swiss America inform you how. All you do is mention my name, Eric, when you call or text 800-289-2646. The report's completely free. 800-289-2646. Message and data rates may apply. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, continuing to watch this hurricane track, it's going to actually be pretty brutal, headed all the way up into North Georgia. You're still going to get winds into the late high 70s, low 80s. The Fulton County area, that's metro Atlanta, is going to be spared the brunt of it now, but the eye wall looks like on this current trajectory is going to come straight over me, south of there. That's yikes. Yep, not looking good right now for those of us. Basically, if you want a sense of how this hurricane is playing out, to give you a sense of it, if you're looking on the map, you just pull up I-75. And I-75 is up to Macon, Georgia. It's kind of the line that's going to take through Georgia from Tallahassee. It's going to cut over to the east and then go up 75 to Macon and then cut between Athens and Atlanta, Georgia as well. So continuing to watch that play out. Welcome back to the show. The phone number here, the Eric Erickson Show, 877-973-7425. Gavin has been waiting, very patient. Gavin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Mr. Eric, bodacious greetings. Hope you guys are safe and that this thing takes a hard right turn.
I sure hope so.
I I had a weird question, and I probably could have looked it up, but I wanted to hear your expert opinion. If for some horrible reason something were to happen to Joe Biden between now and the election, what would that mean for Kamala Harris, and how do you think things would play out?
Oh, so, okay. I will tell you, I'm aware of some of the behind-the-scenes chatter of some Democrats who very much tried to get Joe Biden to go on and step out of the White House. And essentially, they did make the case, if you're not fit to run again, you're not fit to currently be president, get out of the way. Now, obviously, the Bidens refused to do that. But their thinking was that if you were to put Kamala in the White House right now, she could begin to change policy positions. And in changing her policy positions, she could say, look, I'm beginning to change the direction. You've got to give me time for this to work, and make the case that you got to give her a full term. Look, for example, she's now secured the border. Look, for example, she's now cracked down on illegal immigrants crossing. Look at all these things. And then she get elected and completely undo all that stuff. But in the meantime, she could begin to implement policies that look like she was taking action and tell people, you got to give me more time. You got to give me more time, get her elected, and then completely undo all those things.
So she would only be able to serve the remaining version of Biden's term and then 4 more years, correct?
No. So under the constitutional amendment limiting presidents, if you're the vice president and you take over more than 2 years into a presidential term, you can have up to 10 years in office. So she can have her 2 full terms plus the remainder of Biden's. So the caveat is, if you take over, if you're a vice president and you assume the office of president and you're less than 2 years into the term, then you can only finish that term and have an additional term. If you're more than 2 years into the term, you get the rest of the term plus 2 4-year terms.
Very cool. I appreciate you answering my question. Can I give a shout out to my wife and daughter?
Yes, go ahead.
Brianna, love you. Baby Juniper, love you guys.
Look at that.
Well, thanks, Eric.
Absolutely, Gavin. Happy to. Aw, family matters. That was very sweet. I don't give shout outs to my family on radio. They're like, Dad, stop talking about us on radio. All right. So now the phone number, 877-973-7425. Let me get Todd on here before I move on. Todd, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Eric, I'm doing well. Hope you are.
Yes.
I'm a longtime Ditto head, and glad you're on the air now, so we still have some positive voices out there for us conservatives.
Thank you.
I have a question for you about tariffs. I have heard that the tariffs would only be on products that we manufacture here in the United States, not all products. Is that correct?
So it has been worded twice. The latest wording is that any product manufactured abroad that we could make in this country, not do make, but could make, would be subject to a tariff, which is basically everything.
Okay. So we're kind of splitting hairs there with the definition, but I understand. I was just trying to get some clarification on that. So I appreciate you clarifying that for me.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And Todd, I'm glad you said that. So let me explain this one to you. Let's just let's do the worst case scenario here, because I mean they've gone back and forth on this as to whether or not it's products currently made in the United States or products that could be made. Given the history of statements from both Vance and Trump, the idea is essentially anything that we import into this country, any good we import into this country, would be subject to a 10% tariff, not just from countries that we have hostile relationships with, but 100% of all goods that are manufactured in another country. I'm going to keep my math as simple as possible. So let us do a good that is worth $100. So you have a good that's worth $100, a 10% tariff. So now that good is $110. If you do that, what you're going to find is that you have driven up the cost of everything in this country by 10%, and that's inflationary. Now, why does that happen? let's say you're buying this $100 good and it is manufactured in Vietnam. A lot of stuff manufactured outside of China now comes from Vietnam. The Vietnamese are actually pretty friendly trading partners with us these days, and they don't like China, interestingly enough. So everything that comes from Vietnam and every other country, 10% tariff. The Vietnamese, the Indians, the Cambodians, the Thais, the Filipinos, you name it, they're not paying the tariff. You cannot force another country to pay you money. Instead, what happens, according to the way tariffs work, is the importing company pays the tariff. So I'm just going to pick a company. Don't be mad at me. Randomly, I'm going to pick General Mills. Let's say they're importing cereal. Look, y'all, I'm just winging it here. General Mills. General Mills has to pay the 10% tariff on the import from wherever it comes from. Vietnam, India, doesn't matter. So what does General Mills do? General Mills is going to raise the price of the good it's selling by 10%. And you are going to pay the money to General Mills, and then General Mills is going to pay the government. Now, that's not really in practice how it works. If we're completely in the weeds on this, General Mills is going to raise the price by 7% and will eat the 3% cost. So it's not complete. It'll cut into their profits. And in cutting into their profits now, they don't have the shareholder value. So if General Mills is in your stock portfolio or mutual fund, the value of the company isn't going to be as good as it otherwise could have been. If you're in an area of labor production near General Mills is not going to be hiring as many people. It's going to eat some of that cost to avoid a full 10% increase in price. And the effect is going to be it's going to hurt shareholders. It's going to hurt your portfolio. It's going to hurt your 401k if General Mills is in there. It's going to hurt the local community because General Mills won't have as much money to pour into the local community and investment and charitable giving and things like that. It's going to hurt their hiring. That's why tariffs are some of the worst economic policy. Now, compare that with a corporate income tax like we were discussing earlier. Corporate income tax isn't great either. What a corporate income tax does, remember when Donald Trump cut corporate taxes and everybody got like $1,000 from their company, got a bonus? Congratulations, our corporate taxes have been cut. We're going to share some of the wealth with you. Everybody was excited except Nancy Pelosi, who said that was just a pittance. It wasn't big money. With a corporate tax, the way an American corporate tax typically works is we don't tax the money that the company keeps overseas. So let's take Apple. Apple has billions of dollars that it leaves in overseas bank accounts. Apple repatriated a portion of that money into the United States, and one of the deals with the Trump tax plan was that if you brought money home from abroad, we were going to tax it at a very low rate, and then all money moving forward was going to be taxed, I think, at like 20%, I think it was. So a lot of companies repatriated money from their foreign bank accounts, paid a very low tax on it, lower than what they would have even paid to those countries abroad, and then got a higher tax rate, but it was still lower than the previous corporate tax rate. And they were fine with it. Brought a lot of money home, put a lot of money into Americans' hands, put a lot of money back into those businesses and the like. You raise a corporate tax, corporations pass the cost on to you. Your prices go up. They hire less people. They don't have as much money, so their labor costs go up, things like that. So just like tariffs, wages don't increase as much, hiring doesn't increase as much, charitable giving doesn't increase as much, and costs of products are passed on to you. The difference is this. Corporations can leave a lot of their foreign money in foreign countries and not repatriate it here. So they on their books still have the money. It's still of value to the company, still generating interest to the company, and can still be used abroad. So a corporate tax increase is actually less punitive to the economy than a tariff, because 100% of us are impacted by the tariff and not all of us are impacted by the corporate tax. And again, because a lot of the money that these companies are bringing back to the U.S. can still be used by the companies abroad. I hope that makes sense to you. A corporate tax increase is actually a better they're both bad. Don't get me wrong. They're both bad. But between the two of them, if I've got to answer the question of which is actually not as bad, the corporate tax increase is not as bad. The problem is Kamala Harris wants to raise it to a hyper excessive rate. And that's the problem with Kamala Harris's plan. Kamala Harris's plan could actually provoke a recession just like the tariffs could. The tariffs provoke more inflation, which means higher interest rates and all those sorts of things. But a corporate tax increase is in and of itself not a good thing. It's bad. The best corporate tax rate is 0. Now, I don't think we have political will in this country to do it. But why? Because, again, most corporate tax is paid by you. They raise the cost of their goods and services, and you have to pay it. And that helps. Now, on the corollary, on the other side of this, you do 0, then all their foreign money can come back into this country without penalty, and they'll bring more money home. I think it's just fantastic. But I also do think that we're not going to get a 0 corporate tax rate, and both of these teams have terrible economic policies. I actually do think that both Trump and Kamala Harris have equally bad economic policies right now. My only caveat on that is that I do think that if Donald Trump gets in office, he will actually sit down and listen to his advisors who say, actually, Mr. President, tariffs aren't the good idea you think they are. Here's why. And when he realizes there would be political damage to him for imposing tariffs, he wouldn't do it. Kamala Harris wouldn't care. Now, the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, I got to tell you about that. It is an air purifier. And right now, if you buy one, you can get one for free at EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. You buy one, you get one free. You buy 5, you get 5 for free. Now, what is it? It's an air purifier. So it gets rid of the pollen, it gets rid of the dust that's floating in the air. But here's where it really shines. It actually eliminates odors. And not only does it eliminate odors, it kills bacteria and viruses. The new Eden Pure Thunderstorm has been redesigned. It generates plasma ions and it generates ozone. So the ozone locks onto odors and neutralizes the odors. The plasma ions lock onto bacteria and viruses and kill them. What it actually does, technically, it's very scientific, but it essentially weighs them down. They can't float through the air, so you can't catch them. So it's very good, and it's you can hold this thing in his hand. The new one's even smaller than the old one. You can hold it in a single hand. You can put it in a travel bag. It just works. You buy one, you get one for free. You go to EdenPureDeals.com, EdenPureDeals.com, and you put in Eric Bogo, ERICKBOGO. You'll get buy one, get one free this week only, EdenPureDeals.com. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson across the United States of America. I need a quick programming note. One is I was supposed to do an event for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta tonight at my flagship station, WSB. It's obviously been canceled because of the hurricane. A number of people reached out, and I know they sent out notices because I've heard from people who did get the notice, but some people must have missed it. So if you thought you were coming to an event at my flagship station with me tonight, you are not, because there's a hurricane coming. The other one is those of you listening on WICC in Connecticut. I sure have appreciated being with you guys up there, but for really good reasons, the station has decided to go in a different direction. The big news station out of New York City decided to abandon its mission, and so WICC is taking up that mission with a lot of local programming. With the indictment of Eric Adams and stuff, there's so much local news up there to cover. I am stepping away from the station, and so they can do all local news all the time, which is actually the future of radio stations that can do it. They're just going to be a better radio station because of it. So while I will miss you very much, you can always follow me online. Just text Eric to 33777. But it's actually, given the abandonment of local news up there by some of the big stations, it's a very smart decision for the station. I can't fault them at all, as much as I'm sad to lose you guys. But I will always have WTIC up in Hartford, so you can always tune in there as well. I've still never been to Connecticut. I need to go to Connecticut. I've never been to Connecticut. My friend Dave Briggs, who used to be on CNN and it was on Fox and Friends on the weekend for a while, keeps wanting to get me up to Bridgeport, where he is. I got to get up there at some point to see Connecticut. Now, all that being said, if you text Eric, ERICK, to 33777, you can follow me around the internet. And in the next 24 hours, I'm sure I'll be posting, assuming I even have like the ability to get online, I'm sure I'll have pictures of all the damage done by the hurricane as it blows through middle Georgia. We are now expecting a 20-foot possible storm surge on the coast south of Tallahassee. There are people saying that it is impossible for a 20-foot storm surge. It is not. And I need you to hear me right now as someone whose family went through Katrina, who knows many people who survived Katrina and several who did not. If you tell yourself it is not possible to have a 20-foot storm surge, you are fooling yourself, particularly in that area of the country. These powerful, powerful, powerful hurricanes, and this one could be Category 4 by the time it makes landfall. If not 5, it's starting to surge. It is a very dangerous storm, and you should be packing up and getting out of the way. Now, I am hours and hours inland. I'm like 5.5, 6 hours from the coast. It's going to be Category 1 by the time it gets me. It's still going to be a hurricane when it blows through my neck of the woods. I have been through Category 1 and 2 hurricanes growing up. We may lose some trees. I'm hoping nothing falls on my house. I'm not exceedingly worried about a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane. But if you are south of me, headed towards Tallahassee, you need to make some contingency plans because it is going to not be good for you. When we come back, I will take your phone calls, 877-973-7425. But before I do, I've got to talk to you about this story that has started trickling out. China's cutting-edge nuclear submarine has sunk. It has sunk. This comes on the heels of China's cutting-edge nuclear aircraft carrier splitting in half. They're not firing on all cylinders in China. This is a nation on decline, and we need to talk about exactly what's going on in China that's causing them all sorts of problems. I have some theories. Now, I'm not an expert, but I know the experts, and I've been chatting with them, and you need to hear about what's happening there because they got all sorts of problems.